From WLWT, this is Let's Talk Cincy, presented by Western and Southern Financial Group. Put our financial strength behind you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Curtis Fuller. The grand jury decision in the Breonna Taylor case is the story everyone is talking about. The panel issued a 3-count indictment against only one of the 3 Louisville police officers involved in that shooting that left 26-year-old Breonna Taylor dead inside her apartment back in March. But the charges are not related to her killing. The 3 charges of wanton endangerment are actually related to shots fired into another apartment by now former Louisville police officer Brett Hankinson, which put 3 people in danger, including a child and a pregnant woman. Hankinson was fired back in June. The police chief at the time said the officer violated procedures the night of that shooting and showed indifference to the value of human life by firing blindly into the apartments. More than 30 bullets were fired by the 3 officers. The police were attempting to execute a search warrant as part of a drug investigation. The announcement sparked protests in Louisville and around the country. People upset with that decision, saying justice was not served. During these latest demonstrations down in Louisville, 2 police officers were shot. Both are now recovering, and a suspect is in custody. People here in Cincinnati also took to the street to express their anger and frustration. They, like the family of Breonna Taylor, have demanded that more severe charges need to be filed against all 3 officers involved in the shooting.
When that decision was announced, it was just like a knife in the heart. It's days like this that say we have to come out, make our voices heard, be a presence in our city to say this is not okay, this is not acceptable, and we will not tolerate this.
I feel like those who are supposed to protect us don't. Those who are supposed to ensure protection happen won't. And there is no faith and no trust in our systems any longer.
Back in May, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron announced his office would take over this case and serve as the special prosecutor. It was his call to take this case to the grand jury.
I urge everyone listening today to not lose sight of the fact that a life has been lost, a tragedy under any circumstances. The decision before my office as the special prosecutor in this case was not to decide if the loss of Ms. Taylor's life was a tragedy. The answer to that question is unequivocally yes. There is no doubt that this is a gut-wrenching, emotional case, and the pain that many people are feeling is understandable. I deeply care about the value and sanctity of human life. It deserves protection, and in this case, a human life was lost. We cannot forget that. My job as the special prosecutor in this case was to put emotions aside and investigate the facts to determine if criminal violations of state law resulted in the loss of Ms. Taylor's life. This included examining the actions of Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly, Detective Brett Hankinson, and Detective Miles Cosgrove, the 3 officers who fired their weapons in the early morning hours of March 13th. In working with our federal partners on this case, it was determined that while we would share information to advance our respective investigations, we must also maintain some level of separation to ensure the integrity of each investigation. When examining issues regarding potential civil rights violations, we determined that any such violation are better addressed through a federal-led investigation, and issues involving potential criminal acts concerning the shooting are better addressed by a state-led investigation. With this in mind, our investigation focused on the events that took place in Ms. Taylor's apartment on March 13th. In total, 6 bullets struck Ms. Taylor. Medical evidence obtained by our team indicates that only 1 shot was fatal.
This from Attorney General Daniel Cameron giving a look at the tragic night Breonna Taylor was killed.
Evidence shows that officers both knocked and announced their presence at the apartment. The officers' statements about their announcement are corroborated by an independent witness who was near in proximity to apartment 4. In other words, the warrant was not served as a no-knock warrant.
The Kentucky State Police ballistics report did not conclude which of the 3 officers fired the shot that killed Taylor, but the FBI said it was Officer Miles Cosgrove who fired the fatal shot.
Further medical evidence shows that Ms. Taylor would have died from the fatal shot within a few seconds to 2 minutes after being struck.
The Attorney General says the shooting was justified. Officer Jonathan Mattingly was not charged either. He fired 16 shots. The officer charged, Officer Brett Hankinson, fired 10 bullets.
When prosecutors prematurely release information about the case to the public, it can risk justice by poisoning the jury pool, violating the accused's rights to a fair trial, and even jeopardizing the final verdict. The success of our legal system is predicated on the principle that the accused is innocent until proven guilty. Despite passions, opinions, and desire for every detail to be known, the rule of law must apply. Justice must be done.
Now, each charge of wanton endangerment carries a maximum penalty of up to 5 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. Brett Hankinson is free after posting a $15,000 bond. Up next, more from Kentucky's Attorney General on his perspective about truth and facts and his message to protesters when Let's Talk Cincy continues. Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, says the officers did not identify themselves before entering the apartment. The Attorney General says his facts contradict what Walker says. He also says he had to rely on ballistics evidence, 911 calls, interviews, and radio traffic because the officers were not wearing body cameras. And I want you to listen again. What about the issue of a no-knock warrant? Here's more from Daniel Cameron.
Evidence shows that officers both knocked and announced their presence at the apartment. The officers' statements about their announcement are corroborated by an independent witness who was near in proximity to apartment 4. In other words, the warrant was not served as a no-knock warrant. When officers were unable to get anyone to answer or open the door to apartment 4, the decision was made to breach the door. After breaching the door, Sergeant Mattingly was the first and only officer to enter the residence. Sergeant Mattingly identified 2 individuals standing beside one another at the end of the hall, a male and a female. In his statement, he says that the male was holding a gun, arms extended, in a shooting stance. Sergeant Mattingly saw the man's gun fire, heard a boom, and immediately knew he was shot as a result of feeling heat in his upper thigh. Kenneth Walker fired the shot that hit Sergeant Mattingly, and there is no evidence to support that Sergeant Mattingly was hit by friendly fire from other officers. Mr. Walker admitted that he fired one shot and was the first to shoot. In addition to all the testimony, the ballistics report shows that the round that struck Sergeant Mattingly was fired from a 9mm handgun. The LMPD officers fired 40 caliber handguns. Every person has an idea of what they think justice is. My role as special prosecutor in this case is to set aside everything in pursuit of the truth. My job is to present the facts to the grand jury, and the grand jury then applies those facts to the law. If we simply act on emotion or outrage, there is no justice. Mob justice is not justice. Justice sought by violence is not justice. it just becomes revenge. I understand that Miss Breonna Taylor's death has become a part of a national story and conversation. But we must also remember the facts and the collection of evidence in this case are different than cases elsewhere in the country. Each is unique and cannot be compared. There will be celebrities, influencers, and activists who, having never lived in Kentucky, will try to tell us how to feel, suggesting they understand the facts of this case and that they know our community and the Commonwealth better than we do. But they don't. I urge those protesting on the streets to remember this. Peaceful protests are your right as an American citizen. Instigating violence and destruction are not.
Now, for the record, no drugs were found in Breonna Taylor's apartment. Kenneth Walker says he fired because he thought someone was breaking into that apartment. Charges were dropped against him, and he has since filed a lawsuit against the Louisville Metro Police. Well, up next, one-on-one with the head of the Urban League Center for Social Justice, calling for accountability in the Breonna Taylor case when Let's Talk Cincy continues. Welcome back. Opinions on this case are deeply divided. I sat down with a local attorney who is leading a new center aimed at addressing police accountability.
This outcome is not justice for Breonna Taylor at all. I think that there's overwhelming evidence that, at least that we know about, that should have at least served as a basis for charging all three of them with her death.
That from the executive director of the Urban League Center for Social Justice. Raquel Howard-Smith is a veteran attorney whose words mirror what's being expressed by many, demanding more than 3 low-level felony charges against only one of the 3 officers involved.
All across the legal community, it was sort of a calling card out to us when the Kentucky Attorney General decided to assemble a grand jury for this particular matter, because it was well within his power to charge the officers without a grand jury. But grand juries sort of give prosecutors cover.
The AG, Daniel Cameron, says Taylor's death was a tragedy. He says Brett Hankinson's actions warranted the charges against him. Miles Cosgrove and John Mattingly were justified in their action. The police union agrees, and Sergeant Mattingly says he knows they did the legal, moral, and ethical thing that night. Attorney Smith says the Taylor case has lacked transparency.
So to tell us as a community and as a country that, this is as much justice that Breonna Taylor is entitled to, it makes absolutely no sense, because we can't see what's going on. Once Breonna Taylor's family retained legal counsel, as I understand, and started requesting the documents from the police department, the police department did not readily release those documents. So they had to file a lawsuit. Then what happens is George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis. And you see this uprising across the country really lifting up both cases at that time. Over the summer, the police department did release an incident report, but it was nearly blank and had incorrect information. As a matter of fact, they indicated that there were no injuries and that there was no forced entry into Breonna Taylor's apartment, which we know both of those things are untrue. And the document was lacking of really any detail around what happened. So there's a lack of transparency there.
Let's talk about the no knock, because initially the reports came out that this was a no knock warrant. That's what the public was hearing all along. The Attorney General said this week that wasn't the case, that the police officers identified themselves. So talk a little bit about how it went from point A to point B.
So there's a lot of confusion around the no-knock warrant. It is my understanding from reading reports that a no-knock warrant was issued in this particular case for that particular address, and that the suspect that they were looking for was actually arrested prior to them executing this warrant. It's also my understanding that at that point in time, the officers decided that they would come in, according to the Attorney General, with a knock and announce approach, even though they had a signed no-knock warrant. This is a huge area of dispute because in this circumstance, he is saying that the evidence points to the fact that there was a knock and announce, meaning the police officers knocked really hard and then yelled out police so that the occupants inside knew that they were police officers. But you have to pay attention to the Attorney General's language too. He indicated that there was one independent witness that stated that they heard them yell out police. However, news reports are saying there are up to 12 other residents of that apartment complex that says that they heard nothing before there was a battering ram that went into that door. So I think that the issue is really whether the police did identify themselves before going in. I don't think that they, because the suspect was already arrested that they were looking for, I don't think they had a basis for a no-knock warrant at that time because the circumstances had changed. I'm less well-versed in Kentucky law, but especially here in Ohio, if the circumstances under which the warrant was issued changes, then you're supposed to get a new warrant. Because the warrant is based on very specific information. And if they know that that information is either untrue or has changed, then the police officer, you know, in observance of the occupant's Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable search and seizure, should go back to the drawing board and figure out whether they have a right to be there in that way under those circumstances. So, I mean, I would definitely argue that one, there's a lot of confusion around whether they had a right to be there. But I would also argue that the evidence that was presented to the grand jury, there's no way for us to tell whether that was an accurate picture or not of what happened.
And we also don't know if the 12 people who said they didn't hear something appeared before the grand jury.
You are correct. We have no clue at this point in time who testified. We don't know if Kenneth Walker, her boyfriend at the time, who was the star witness because he was there, we don't know whether he testified. We don't know what statements were presented to the grand jury. We don't even know which charges were advanced to the grand jury to consider for all three officers. I think what it comes down to, or at least what the Attorney General has said, is it comes down to ballistics and being able to tell based on that science who shot first and when. But when it comes down to the circumstances and the chronology of what happened, the only folks, as I understand, that were in that apartment were Breonna Taylor, Kenneth Walker, and the two officers who forced their way in. It's a he said, she said. But I think at that point, Breonna Taylor cannot speak for herself. Kenneth Walker is definitely a witness. The two officers are, but their credibility, in my opinion, is very much in question.
And a final thought when Let's Talk Cincy returns. The family of Breonna Taylor reached a settlement in the wrongful death lawsuit with the city of Louisville. That settlement, $12 million, and the promise of police reforms. And finally, let me close with this thought. Maya Angelou had an interesting quote. She said, "There's a world of difference between truth and facts." She said facts can actually obscure the truth. So with that in mind, consider this.
He talked a lot about truth and facts. I heard him say that quite a bit. As a journalist, I've been doing this 40 years. I've always seeing the difference between what is truth and what is a fact. It doesn't equate all the time. Mm-hmm. He made it seem, as I interpreted it, that the truth equaled the facts. That's not always the case.
Absolutely not. My mother always had a saying, there's three sides to every story. What he said, she said, and the truth. And I think that, the criminal justice system is really set up in a way where the facts are determined by who's the better advocate, right? So you have two lawyers, whether it's a prosecutor or a defense attorney, and they get to duke it out to present what they feel like is the most credible story. And then a trial jury typically will determine from those two sides of the case what they believe to be fact. Those facts that the jury sort of conclude, they're not necessarily always the truth. And I think that the biggest indication of the fact that that happens quite often is the fact that we have programs like the Innocence Project, and we have 20 to 30 to 50 years after people are convicted, a jury that decides facts when the truth comes out much later. So yes, I think the Attorney General was incorrect in equating the two, and especially in this circumstance, we don't even have enough information, not enough has been publicly available from that grand jury proceeding to know what he even presented. The benefit that a prosecutor has in a grand jury proceeding is that they get to curate a case. Without cross-examination, they can advance whatever charges they want. And in most circumstances, those proceedings are secret forever. There may be very limited circumstances under which that would be released. But, only the people that are on that grand jury, the AG and possibly some of the witnesses, can even attest to what was presented there. So, he's equating truth with fact, and I don't buy it.
Well, that does it for the program today. Email us your ideas at ltc@WLWT.com. And remember, you can always watch full episodes on WLWT.com/Let's Talk Cincy. You can also listen to Let's Talk on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining me for another edition of Let's Talk Cincy. Have a nice day, and I'll see you right back here next week.